Okay, I'll share my screen then and get started then. Okay, so let's see here. Last class, does everybody remember what we did with state management and React and the context API?
I wasn't here last class.
Okay, I'll just throw the link into here. But yeah, so let's see. Link might already actually been posted. So I made a branch off this for React Router, which we're going to cover this week. And let me pull up and run the app as well. So there's two repos. One is kind of like the app that I coded before the class, and then one is the app we're going to code together. So I could just show you. So you said you weren't here for last class. So I'm going to run the app that we did last class. So this was kind of the idea. This is not what we actually built. This kind of was the idea. So like you add a profile and like we handle the state management to share it across the app. And then we had like, you could add a course and put in like some inputs. You would add it. You can remove courses, edit courses. Kind of like that was the idea. And then we actually built in the time we had in the class, looked a little different as usual, but I think I was pretty happy with how it turned out. So we ended up like deciding not to use a form. We're like, forms are going to take too long, we're running out of time. So when you click add course, we just added like a hard coded course. So we did get the remove working, and edit, we just like we edited it, but we just like had like a hard coded edit value. So that's where we were at. For the profile, we got that working. So that was a recap of last class. We started with the new React app too. This class, we're going to integrate React Router, and it was going to look like this when we're done. Something like this, because it never quite goes to plan, I find. And this is about state management, right? Not UI. So we're going to add a courses page. So if you go to courses, you have just the courses. If you click profile, you can go to your profile page, and you click here, you have a home page where you have profile and courses. And if you notice here, this is the same profile component. So here it's open by default. That's based on this route parameter. And your home page is closed by default. So we kind of use React Router to help us get that. Also, you can view more and you can see information for the course. So that's kind of covers some of the React Router. If we get through all of this, we can even look at maybe adding assignments to a class, which was one of the homeworks that I gave you all on Sunday. So the homework was definitely optional. But I put it in this markdown file here so you can see kind of some ideas of how you could practice with this. Especially with state management, there's always kind of more you can practice. So we have an hour and 15 minutes. So let's just get to it. And student classes -1 is like the example repo. And then this is student classes is the one we're going to actually use. So we're still on the main branch here. So we need to create a new branch. Let's call it integrating React Router. And first thing we need to do, open up the code. Okay. Going to get the app running. npm start. Okay. And we're going to want to add React Router, but first, I do want to clean up this form that we just abandoned. So let's go course forms here. And we imported this course form component to our app.js, I believe. Yeah. So I'm just going to, that's because also the modal would have taken a little more time than we had last class. So here we go. This is kind of more of what we have. Okay. Just remove those. So let's think. Right. So, okay. So right now with our app, it is React apps are known as single page applications because even though it's a single app, a single page, you can have the logic in your UI controls all the different pages you can go. So a different model is server-side rendering, where the server builds your HTML and with the CSS, JavaScript, assets, everything included, and sends all of that over to your UI. But this way, all those routes are controlled on the front end. There's also ways of like splitting that and chunking it where it may not all come in one network call, but those are more advanced topics. But so, okay, how do we make multiple pages? Well, React Router helps us out with that. So let's just first get ourselves a feature. So let's say that instead of this profile and courses, we want to make a dedicated page just for the courses. So we're going to make that courses link right here. And then likewise for profile. And then we want these both to be on the home page. So let's just make a note of that. Right now we have one page for the profile and courses. Let's just say our client wants 3 pages. First, just say like a courses page, profile page, and then the home page, where you could even theoretically could add like 5 or 6 components to it. You know, if we had an assignments page, a grading page, right? The home page, we want to be able to add everything to it. So let's think about how we could actually do this. First of all, does anybody here use React Router? We have 3 students in the class. So I just kind of want to get an idea of where everyone's at with React Router to know what to spend time on.
Nothing in the chat.
Nothing in chat. Okay, Andy, you have. Anybody else? Okay, let's just add React Router to the app. So we're going to Google React Router. And here's the NPM package. So let's go to, here's the GitHub page. Let's go to the website. Now version 6 is here. So we are going to use version 6. Let's read the docs. And let's go to the getting started. So with NPM, we're going to install React Router DOM at version 6. We're using React Router DOM because we're making a web app. So we're going to install that, and we're going to get a familiar error here. So last class, we Googled this and we figured out we need to, React 18, use legacy peer dependencies. And if you use Yarn, you're already taking care of that. Okay, so now we have React Router. Let's see what they do. Start adding multiple routes. So we wrap our entire app in a browser router component. This is a higher order component. It'll probably expose a lot of functionality from the library to all of our routes. Once we add that, we're going to be able to use this routes component, which is like this is something newer to, I think, 5.2. And then inside of our routes, we can define a route component. So this path is the path in our browser that is going to be at. And then here, instead of component equals, we're going to replace that with element equals. And this is the actual component. So in our case, we could have courses to be a courses component. We could have a profile path be a profile component, and so on. So let's throw this in here, and then we can start testing it out, and we'll make our way further down. So in app.js, they did the browser router in the index.js file, it looks like here. So I'm going to do the same thing they did, even though you can do it in app.js. So code editor is going to autocomplete that for me. Save that. The app will run like before. We haven't done anything yet to it. And now we have to think, this is one of the first questions in routing. Some views will be the same. And so sometimes you'll have nested routes sometimes. So sometimes, like, let's say you want one page to like have a totally different like nav bar and different footer. And then like within this layout, you might have like profiles and courses. So for larger apps, you can be swapping out multiple things. But in this case, we're going to keep the nav bar in all of our views and this app container styling. So what we need to do is we need to add the routes right here. So I'm going to import that routes component, and we're going to want all of our routes. So courses route, profile route, the home route. So for that, we need some page level components. Let's see. Let's also wrap this in our courses provider, which we made last class. I'm going to show us that in a second, just to recap. And okay, there is a container as well that wraps all of these. So I'm going to put the container side up here too, above the wraps. You can take things like this too if you want and refactor them to like be higher order components. Like you could have like a single like layout sort of component and then put the children in here. But a lot of people don't like doing that also because it makes it confusing what is in the layout. So there's different ideas there. Let's finish moving these components. Actually, so okay, we're not going to move these because we now need to make a route for them. Look at our app, everything right now is under this base route, the slash. So let's make a courses route, a profile route, and a home route all at the same time. I think it might just be a little. So import the route component. If we look back to documentation, we can give it a path and an element. There's going to be more options, but let's just keep it simple to start. So path equals element equals. So route path equal courses equal empty for now. Duplicate that. Path will equal profile. This will equal a slash. Now we need to here. So before we just had classes and profiles. So we can actually replace this element here, this courses element. You can just put in the component just like that. So it can be super convenient. Okay. And now I'm going to test that these two work as expected. Okay, so refresh, and now we can see there's nothing here anymore because this base path is just empty brackets. Let's put, and there you go. So good. Let's try out the courses and profile. Courses and profile. So it is working. I'm going to make a commit right here. Let's say we added React Router and we set up routes for courses and profile pages. So let's revisit the idea of a single page application. Even though this, so a lot of the logic that React Router does under the hood is they keep what the user sees, they keep that parity between that and what's in your browser. If you ever play around with it, your browser has an API. So like the window object is one example. So window dot, and there's all kinds of objects that you have just from your browser. So React, JavaScript has this. So React also has it. But there's caveats between different browsers. So React Router just really gives us, they work with all that stuff, all that lower level APIs under the hood. But yeah, so but it's still a single page. So this is still a single JavaScript bundle that we're using. All right, so that, okay, let's move on to our next feature. In the home page. So we're going to create a new component. You could also, if you prefer, make like a pages folder and like have a home page here. There's different ways to do it, but this is a small app, so I'm going to keep it simple. I'm going to say home page here. Export. We've been doing named exports. So we've been doing like things like this, export const homepage equals. However, since this is like only going to be used as like a route level component, I'm going to make this default because for things like the suspense API, code splitting, there's certain times when you have page components in React where it only works if you have a default import. So like it can reduce how large your JavaScript bundle is if you take advantage of some of these features. This is Stack Overflow. But so anyways, this is just a different way of exporting it. If you need to figure this out, you can always Google it and they'll tell you. But we're going to do a default export on the homepage. And I'm going to put empty div. And well, we want our profile and then our courses just like before. So here there's two route components, but we're just going to import both of them and render them inside of the div like this. So profile and courses. Classes. Now we're going to get an error here because we have name and set name, which don't exist. So last class, we got away with passing in the name to the nav bar. We went to this context here, made our own custom book for use courses. And we learned how to do that. So let's review this by doing the same thing with our profile information. So if you remember our profile, we have a use state hook with a string. So it's pretty simple, but we have our name and our set name helper method. Instead of doing it this way, let's refactor to put it into a context API for practice. So we're going to make profile context file. And we can look back here and see we need a create context. So profile context equals The next thing we'll need is a component to use that context and render the children. So here, provider, this is the provider pattern that I put a link to in the README. And this can also encapsulate all of our logic to make our components a little nicer and take that state out of it. And we're going to have this sort of pattern to prop drill without having to explicitly pass our props down. We're not actually prop drilling because we're using the context API. So this is what that looks like. Okay, so let's make that happen. Component. I'm going to return the JSX, advantage of the provider. Inside, under the children, and children is implicitly passed to each React component, which we covered a little bit last week too. We're going to export this as, actually, I don't think we have to. I think we did, but yeah, so we're going to export the profile provider. And this is a good start, but now we need to have the value, what we're passing in. So we have a name and a set name value that we could expose. Let's take this logic here. And let's move it into this. So let's bring our use state. And now all the children will have that. I would say too, this is a good practice, but probably a not very practical example. Something like this, a field like it, it's unlikely you'll do the entire context provider pattern just to pass in the name. You might just pass in the name like this, but let's say you have like an entire profile settings with like a home address, like this is a full app and you're not using an external state management tool, like one of those libraries, then this makes more sense. But let's just do the whole process again to practice. And then we're going to finish adding the React router. Also, one caveat is to provide these values, it has to be higher up in the React tree. So we could not just put profile provider here like we did with the courses provider, because this nav bar expects to have that information. And so like the point is we can't like have a use profile hook here. Let's finish up and make that use profile hook too. So let's export a const. All this custom React hook will be is just a function that returns a use context reference to this profile provider. So use profile function, and we return use context of the profile provider. So if we were to like have look like this, which if you weren't here last week, we did this like in the classes. So we like pulled all this functionality out of our use courses hook. But it's okay. So this is not going to work because this use profile, it's in the scope of this is this app.js component. So if we want use profile to actually get that information from our profile context, we have to bring our profile context out a level. So we could do this a couple ways, but for the sake of this demonstration, yeah, this is pretty annoying. We'd have to create another component to do this. See, this sometimes the solution is just not the best solution. Does anybody have any ideas for how we could get what we want here?
What about creating a controller to wrap app?
Yes, that's a good idea. So instead of having app here, we can have a controller to wrap our app. The thing is, that's all to just provide profile information. So you could do that, but then it starts to get a little bit like not as simple. Your app starts to feel bloated. So let's do this. Instead, we can bring this profile provider, because thanks, Mike, that was a good idea. But let's actually do this, maybe a little, if we wrap the whole thing in this profile provider, then we should be able to call use profile inside of these components. So our nav bar needs a name. So we're going to go into our nav bar, going to destructure and pull out the name object from that value object we pushed into the provider. So name will equal our use profile hook. And now name should work as expected. And we're going to delete these references. Okay. And here we're going to delete this. So now we're going to go to the profile component. We're going to remove these props being passed in explicitly. And instead, we're going to pull them out of our use profile hook. And let's see if this still compiles. I want to note that we did this 2 different ways. In courses, we made the functions to modify state and only expose those functions. I kind of like that better. But here, just to keep it compatible with the code we already wrote, we're just exporting this set name directly. But so, for example, in the profile component, like this handle change, you could easily pull something like this out and put it into your profile context, and then like export that here. Anyways, let's see if this all runs as expected. Okay, it does not. It says we have an error in our navbar component. Name is not, not because we need to remove this name. We're no longer passing in the prop this way. We're pulling it out of the context API. Okay, now we have a different error. Maybe our console has a better explanation. Let's recompile it. Profile context, use profiles undefined. I probably did not export this hook. Export const use profile equals, we're going to use context profile provider. And use profile is being used where in the code? Navbar profile, and okay, so we import it. Use profile is undefined. Weird. Let's see, export equals use context, courses context. Okay, so I did something here, it's an easy mistake to make. I am using the context of the provider component, not the actual context that we created. So this is a quick fix. We're going to just replace the provider with context. So now we actually are doing this correctly. So here we are back at the home page. If we go to courses show up, and likewise with profile. Let's check that our state management still works. So in Nico, it works. It all works. So let's see. So let's check that in as well. We didn't come here today to do to do that, but we needed to add React routers, so we had to update our code to support that a little better. So let's git commit. These are my shortcuts with Git, but let's git commit refactor profile state into context API to share state across route components. A little verbose, but I think it better to be detailed than not. Okay. So now here we are. I want some input from the class, what they think we should do next, or what you would like to do next. Either one. You have anything in the chat?
Nothing in the chat.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna give everyone maybe a few more seconds, and if we don't have anything, I will just continue with what I think we should do next.
Going once, going twice.
Okay, so I'm going to import the home page that we just made here to finish up that route. I'm going to remove the unused imports now as well. And I'm going to finish this home route. Now we should just see it all populate back. Okay, here we go. So now we have this compound component, and it's going to pull these in. So if you had something else, another page, let's say, you could make it anything. So this is how you can just pull in lots of different pages. Now we need to actually link, right? So when we click this, we want to go home. We want to have a courses link. We want to go to the profile. So let's do that. That's the next step usually in having client-side routing or any kind of routing. The user needs to be able to click around. Let's fix this spacing. Okay, so back to the documentation. So here we go. You can create a route component. We did that. And you can use this link component to specify a path that the user will go to. And yeah, so let's just try this out. Let's go to our nav bar. That's a good place people might want to navigate from. And okay, so now we want to make, let's say, this student classes tracker go to the home page. There's a few ways to do this in React. One way is, if you're coming from especially just HTML, I mean, you could just wrap pretty much anything in a link. So if we brought in this link from React Router DOM, 2 would be / because that's the home page. We can put this in here. Let's see if that works. I'm not promising it'll be styled correctly, but okay, it doesn't work. Oh, it might work actually. Let's try just to test this out. Let's make this go to the profile page. It works. So let's get this styled back. So with libraries like Material UI, there's usually a lot of helper things. So we could put our own styling here with CSS, or we can just look at what Material UI has. So they actually have something for us already. I'm just going to Google it again so we can all see it. Material UI React router link. Let's just, so adding link component from React router. Let's see if this is it. So here's their navigation, kind of like ours, an app bar with some components. Okay, they have some idea. I don't like that one though. They have a link inside of it. Let's keep scrolling. Component equals link. That's what I was looking for. So Material UI, pretty much, like I think most of their components, if not all of them, have this, at least like the primary components you can build from, have this component property, which specifies like the actual, like what you want it to be, the actual component want to be rendered as. So it's like you can extend your components with this component property. So it combines like the properties of the component you're putting in and the original one. So to give you an example, we have our typography here. Let's we already have a component here. So okay, for this example, just this example with like text. We don't want that actually. This might break something. Let's just see if we do component equals link 2 equals profile. We remove this. This use case works great with like buttons. I actually haven't done it with. Okay, so our styling's still messed up. But for this, what I'm just going to do is put in some CSS. So color white in our text decoration, that underline will be set to none. Now here we go. So we can go back. And that works. Let's change this back to our single slash for our home page. And let's make our profile page work. So we can do a similar thing, but to just demonstrate different ways of doing the same result, let's just wrap the link in. In your code, I would choose one or the other. I wouldn't do it 2 different ways in the same file, but we're just going to do that here. So this one is going to be to the profile. And we're a little bit, so here we can toggle though. So let's fix that as well. I want to show you one more thing actually. We're going to use make styles to do this in a little more of an elegant way. So let's say class name equals classes dot, let's call it navbar link. So in our make styles here, we can make a new class. This make styles again comes from Material UI's styling system, which I believe is built on Emotion, another NPM package. So let's say navbar link. So our color can be white, but let's say we don't want it to always be text decoration. Let's say like only on hover, we want to change this off. So you can, with a string, kind of, if you've ever used Sass, it's kind of like this, but you can specify events. So, and hover. So this is going to only apply to when this navbar link class, when this element is hovered. So when it's hovered, text decoration, no. Let's see. Okay, but see now it's still being underlined, which is annoying. So we don't even. So let's move this up here. But maybe we do want this to be highlighted. So okay, so see, so now you can't even highlight it at all. So if you want it highlighted, now you can kind of do your own thing. Anyways, let's get back to adding the rest of our links. So, okay, we have this working. Let's add a link here, to courses. Let's give it the same class name to only get that underline on hover. Also make it a typography so we can get some of that theming information. This lesson isn't really focusing on all material UI. So I'm going to leave it up to you to further customize this if you want. But this theme object here, so instead of color white, if you wanted to have like dark mode and stuff, what you really want to have is the color equals to theme dot, like I think color dot primary or something. And that's going to give you the real color in all of your cases. But here we're just going to make it white, regardless of what material UI asks you to make it.
I think in that case, primary might be black.
You're totally right. So maybe you'd want like a nav bar primary, and you'd want to maybe extend the theme yourself. No, but I think the app bar, I think has its own color theme,
Yeah, it might. I don't know.
I think. But yeah, material UI is this whole world. So if you read more on them, I put some links in the README. They'll make pretty much whatever you want come to life. You just have to spend the time reading it. And so let's also fix this spacing real quick. We want to put the courses with the main title. So I'm just going to do that with a box display of flex items center. It's just going to group the left side of a nav bar together. I need to import box. Time check. Okay. I include this display flex align item center flex 1.
I'm guessing the box is flexing all the way to where welcome is, and courses is just floating to the right side. Maybe.
Yeah.
Yep. Or wait.
Yeah. Because this is already okay. You know what? Because our component.
Could it be the
Right.
title style?
We don't have time to mess with this too much.
Like title is flexing.
I think title is flexing.
Think maybe. Can you look at title style?
The title's style.
Yeah. Because you got classes dot title there. So I'm wondering if it's
Yeah, you're totally right. It has the flex grow. So let's put the flex grow onto here. Nice. Thanks, Mike. That was a great catch. Okay. We're going to give this nav bar length like a margin left of 12. Okay. You know what? That's fine, right? That's fine. Okay, cool. So here we go. We have our linking, and you can now kind of toggle around with some basic React router stuff. Let's now do something a little more interesting. Let's say, let's add this button back into the course cards to like view the course after we commit for our navbar change. So let's add React router links to navbar. Okay, let's see. That would be in our classes component. We have our card, which I said in last class could be its own component if you wanted to make it that. Let's add a button back in. We'll call it view more. And instead of this on click event, we want, okay, so now this is where that component really helps you out. We want a link. This view more should be a link, but we have a button. And to keep this button styling looking just like the other buttons, we're just going to make it, we're going to keep the style of the button, but make the underlying component that link, which is an A tag. If you're using HTML and href. So the component will be the link from React Router DOM. I'll give it that 2. And the 2 will be what? That is our next fun task. So we can't just make this like course, because then all these, well, we could actually, but all these courses go to the same route. A lot of times you want to make it's your own route for each course. When you make a new course, you want to automatically have a new route. This is called wildcarding. It's pretty common. So we're going to make this dynamic. 2 is going to be, make this template literal here. So /courses, let's make it, / and then the ID of the course. So, because that's the only unique field to our knowledge right now. We're not doing any other validation. So 2 courses /course.id. Okay, see? View more, here we go, courses and the ID we generated. Let's see how we can add that to our routes in app.js. Okay, let's make it a course detail page. Okay, we know we need a route, we need a path, and an element. All course detail. So let's go ahead and get this course detail created. Export it as a named export. We're going to have a div and we're going to say course detail page. So import that by just retyping it. Okay, let's see if this worked. Oh, it won't work because we don't have a path. So we know we want courses. But how are we going to get in the ID? We can't just like hard code the ID for one course. And we definitely don't want to just do the ID for every course. We actually can't. Like, so this is wildcarding. So let's go to React Router. Let's see, browser router. Okay. Let's see. Route is the component we're using. So we want to see what the full API is. I'm going to trust that they already have something figured out. So we have our path, our element. Okay, you can nest some routes, looks like. Let's keep scrolling. And here we go. :ID. So maybe you've seen this before. If you work for React Router, you probably have even like server sides like Express. They have wildcards. So let's do that. So we're going to have courses /ID. And now let's see if we at least can render something on these different course pages. So view more, course detail page. Okay, it works. Try another one, same thing. But if you remember our end result that we wanted to achieve, we need to get specific information for that course. The trick here is we're going to pull that ID right out of the URL and then find it in our state management. There's a few ways we can implement this. If anybody has an idea, just throw it in the chat and we can try that out. If not, I'm going to do it the way I think we can do it. I'm going to start with the most straightforward way, actually, and then probably refactor it to a way that's a little cleaner, kind of like how we did with the courses context last week. Okay, nothing in chat, right?
Nope.
Okay. So, course detail page. Let's think. What's in a course? Well, we can cheat. We have a course name, number, and score. That. Let's just hard code this. Name. score. Let's go to the course. Here we go, name, number, and score. Okay. Now we need, so let's assume we have a local variable that could work. So let's say, call this a course. Empty course. So we're just gonna like make some like mock course object. Get the point across. Sure we have use state. And then we can make this an actual value, course.name. Okay. Let's do it. Okay, so 0, the name. All right, so we all know this is working, right? This is coming through, okay? Now we still need to actually get it. So let's go to React Router documentation and let's see. I did already work this out. So we're going to, there's different hooks that React Router has to give you this information. So use location, use match, use navigate. These are all exposed through context API, or at least however they did it, but it's the same pattern. So the way we have use courses, this library did a very similar way. So let's pull in this information that was exposed by the routes. This routes component is like literally either this one or browser router is literally like that provider component that we already did for our courses. Very similar thing. That's why you need to wrap it around your app. Okay, so use location is going to give us the location you're at in the browser. But okay, we want params because params is going to pull out those, all of like the wildcards in the URL that we defined. So here user ID equals use params, and this is user ID param in the URL. So we named it ID in app.js, this wildcard. So that's the param that's going to be pulled out. So this is going to equal use params and console log it. We're going step by step to kind of just see from scratch how this works. So we can refresh the page and we keep getting this ID. Now we need to use it. So, okay, I do have a question now for the class. What is a way, so anytime this ID changes, we need to pick up on that so we can refresh this information. What do we need to use to query the course information every time this ID value changes? It's going to happen right here. We're going to have to do this.
C4 says use effect.
There we go. Thanks, C4. Okay, so we're going to do a use effect. So in the dependency array, well, ID, every time the ID changes, and on mount that will be included. So I do like to kind of validate anyways, if ID exists, it should already. I don't have to do that, but if ID, we're going to use this ID, use the course ID to find the course. So to do that, we need to also pull in our use courses hook. So let's do courses. Courses equals use courses. Okay. Let's console log courses. Here we go. So we have access to them through our custom hook. Now we need to find the course. So there is a helpful method. So found course, I kind of like following that convention, like found object. So we don't want to clash with this name here. So found course equals courses dot find each course. There you go. It's messed up again. For each course item dot ID equals the ID here, it will return a match. If you hover, it'll tell you. If not, it'll be undefined. So if found course is undefined, we can just alert the user the course was not found. And return there. Otherwise, okay, we're going to just set the course to this found course information. Let's try that. Okay, course was not found. This is intentional, or this is because every time this ID is different. Now let's hit view more, and we found the course. So let me explain again. This ID is generated from that nano ID. It will change every time because of the way we're calling that function inside our component. So every rerunner, it should. So this is no longer found. This ID is no longer in our array of courses. That's why you save things in databases, right? That's why IDs are usually generated in the database too. So, okay, but that's fine. Okay, let's check this in and then let's see. We have some time, 22 minutes left. So let's make sure we're on track. Let's check in.
While you're doing that, I missed something. Are you using random UUID generator or something?
Yeah, we're using Nano ID to generate our courses. And we do that here in the we actually refactored to do it in the context. So yeah. We have a couple of ways you can update the array of objects. We did like CRUD here with the courses. And then courses data is this static object here.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so not on every render, but every page load, these will regenerate.
Does Nano ID have a seed that you can give it?
I think it does. It should have it. It's not, this one is not cryptographically or the pseudo number generator, but you can configure it to be much more secure or cryptographically secure. So tiny, secure, URL friendly, unique string generated for JavaScript. Small. Okay, so it actually it uses a hardware random generator, so that's nice. But I love Nano ID because you can customize the length of your ID. You can like customize the alphabet. It's handy. It's just like UUID, but UUID kind of makes longer IDs a lot of the time, depending what you're using.
Based on like the date that they were actually generated. I think, I don't remember. But I remember it had something to do with like what computer it was generated on and the date and all the fun stuff. I remember looking the standard up. This is totally off topic, but UUID, by the way, did you go over this last time?
I did not.
So UUID is something that it's built into most databases, including Postgres, where if you need a completely unique ID and you don't want to generate your own, then UUID this library in particular, or the one that Nico is using. I actually, that one looks better to me as well. In order to create those unique identifiers. And you would use those for like student IDs or course IDs in this case, or whatever data that you need to have a unique ID attached to, where it needs to be guaranteed to be unique. I'm pretty sure UUID, if you run that to almost infinity, it's going to be different every time.
Yeah, actually, I had to take a whole class at UMSL with cryptography, and
ooh, cool.
IDs like underpin so much of cryptography. But just, yeah, you can get into a lot of security with true randomness. Like they say, true randomness doesn't really exist in computers because at scale, it's just too expensive. Like you can make random number generators based on like the weather or based on lava lamps that are more truer to random, because computers, there's this thing deterministic where like, you know, an algorithm generates a random value, follows some kind of algorithm to get there, right? So it's very hard to make an algorithm that cannot be reverse engineered. It can't be figured out, you know, what even probability is of that ID like being something. So you want a lot of noise and a big distribution of different values, and you want it to be like not guessable at all of like based on the time or whatever, like what that ID is. Just, yeah, it's a tangent, but it's a whole field of study. Luckily, they've made some really great libraries based on some like published research papers of like this stuff too. So one of the more theoretical parts of computer science, actually. Where were we? Oh yeah, this is nano ID. You want to look for that secure keyword when you're using IDE packages. Yeah, so okay, shoot. We have 15 minutes left. Let's just do a quick check. I think we committed. Let me finish this commit message and let's check our progress. So, okay, I forgot where we're at, so I'm going to pull up the diff here in my VS Code. In app.js, we added course detail. That's right. So we put in this wildcard, did a course detail component. We added the button in our courses to link there. We passed the ID. And we have this course detail component. We use a use effect. Nice job, C4. And we found our course in the course's context. And we rendered it. So let's summarize that in the commit message. Detail page and course by ID with React Router use points. Let's check on our two apps. This is what we currently have. So everything still works. And we want, okay, I've got another step. Okay, but yeah, let's see. Okay. Good. I think we actually have everything covered, except let's add in some specific functionality per page. So let's say, so here, edit profile is closed by default. Here it is open by default. So we're going to use a different React hook from React Router to make this happen. Okay. First, let's go to our profile component and let's make this toggleable. We skipped this last time because of time. So let's say show profile form, set show profile form. It'll be another use state object. Let's get that imported. Let's default it to false. Now here, okay, to me, this is up to you, but to me, I think I would just inline right here, this text fields apart. I would, no, it's actually not. If we look at the app, we want, here we go, just to show a button or the whole. So this whole thing is not going to be rendered if we're not showing the form. So let's do it here. So if show profile form, or since you're already returning it, you don't need to. You can just otherwise return. I'm going to just repeat this box JSX code. And instead of this stuff, we're going to have a button. It's going to say edit. And the start icon can be that pencil. This is just something or edit, I think, from icons. Oh, I'm not going to, but you can put in icons that way. Now, on click, let's toggle show form. That's going to be a function. And for this, we're going to set show profile form opposite of the previous value. There's a good article on this actually, where it shows you like some kind of edge case where using like this can sometimes be inaccurate. You can do this, honestly. It's not going to probably give you any problems, but I should probably find that article and throw it in the chat afterwards. But okay, so let's just see if this works. And let's just add another button that does the same thing so we can toggle back and forth. Oops. Let's go back to our app, edit, close. A little rough around the edges, but hey, there we go. Now, on the home page, we want edit to be true, or show form to be true. On the profile page, we want it to be false, or actually reverse that. So now, in a second, I'm just gonna tell you the solution. So we're gonna look at this again, and we're gonna see, well, if this path name is profile, oh gosh. If this path name is profile, we're going to show it. So let's go back here. We're going to show it, otherwise we're not. So we're going to use the use effect again. And this time we need to find that URL value that's going to change. Now, this time we're not going to use the use params hook because there's no parameter here we're looking for. We want the path name, and that we can get from the use location hook right here. So location equals use location. Let's just print out that location object. Console log it here. Console logged here, it will just relog every render. So here we go. We get hash key, path name, search, and all of that. We want this path name. So slash profile. So let's deconstruct this to have the path name. Now we can put that path name in here. So whenever that path name changes and this profile component is rendered, we'll have that information. So if path name equals profile, you want to make sure that this show profile form is true. Else, we'll just set it to false, even if it is false by default. This just covers our bases. And if you have ESLint, it might yell at you, but we can throw this setter function as well in the use effect. Okay, so this should give us what we want. Shortcuts. Here we go. Okay. So here we go. Now it's false. Let's see if it changes. Okay, here we go. And now it's true. Let's see if we can console log changing show profile. And you can see it's logging. If we go here, it doesn't get called. So you probably mean by now, but let's just, okay. So here we go. So you can use effect and these hooks in convenient ways. You don't always need to have use effect because they do, like if you put the path name inside of the render for some activities, like if you just put in the path name here, like there's just certain cases where you don't need this, but in our case, this use effect works nicely to give our path name. Okay. Good. Let's remove these console logs. Let's check in the commit. And we have 10 minutes, 9 minutes. So let's maybe go over homework and maybe next steps here. So that's the use location hook where we use path name. Let's see. introduce route-based logic with React routers. And that's where we're at. So I want to check in with everyone here, how we're doing. Is there any questions with like, can we do this feature? Can we, do something else with React Router that you want me to cover? Because the answer is yes. You have to let us know so we can demonstrate it. Authentication is a good one that we'll get to later. Okay, is there any comments in the chat?
Nothing.
Okay, I have an idea. Let's do this. Let's have a catch-all like page not found. One annoying error, at least to me as a user, is if we go here, refresh the page, course not found. What the heck, I was here a second ago. Why is it now giving me these errors? So let's have a wildcard route to tell you page wasn't found. So we're gonna go here, the very bottom. You don't have to comment these like me, but I like putting in comments and then coding it. So, well, let's read React Router. Because in V6, actually, this is different. In the previous ones, you'd have this exact keyword, but they got rid of that in 6. So
Thank God.
right? Yeah, you just have something like this and it would catch all, but now yeah. So let's see. You could Google search, go to Stack Overflow, or let's go to the route again, because this is the component we actually want to do this on. We're looking at the path page. Okay, not giving us much. Let's go to the API. Okay, let's just see. React router. Okay. When you do this stuff, you do want to make sure that like you're on the right version. This is a solution to use that asterisk, but you kind of want to like search around. And so like this is pretty trustworthy, but like the only reason I'm not spending more time on the docs is because we only have 5 minutes left. But if you go through docs like this, you will eventually find it. I do wish they gave us more information in this route page, but it's just somewhere in the documentation that I'm just not seeing right now, and we don't have time to see it all the way. But this is what it looks like though. So we're gonna have route path equals star. Element will be our page not found component. Okay, we're gonna create the component. Race against the clock here. That's not my typing skills. Let's go back to our courses, refresh. Okay, that didn't work.
That one's still going to courses, and when it's not found, it's still triggering that alert. So if you went to localhost 3000/fake page, it would take you there.
Yeah, good catch. And that's one. So now we'd have to figure that out with this wildcarding, how to make that happen. And that might be a good time for like a nested routing sort of situation, but
I would
Yeah.
also say that there's a hook for pushing history. So yeah, awesome, page not found. But there's something where if you go to the courses page and it says not found, instead of triggering the alert, I don't remember what it's called off the top of my head, but I believe it's just
navigate, I think.
What's that?
I think that's the use navigate hook. Good call
Yeah,
there.
sounds right. Yep. And then you can
So-
just push it to the not found page.
Okay. Sweet. So let's try this out. So we want to do navigate. Yeah, I like that solution, Mike. Use navigate. And then we want to navigate. And so if not found, let's try to navigating. So the path, and then you can optionally say replace is true or not. If we do just that. Okay. So we view more, refresh the page, we get sent back. Nice. We could even do a set timeout. It's starting to get close to that a couple weeks ago when we had that
Oh,
interval inside of the use effect.
Every time I see set timeout now, I just like have flashbacks.
So what does replace do? What does that feel like as a user? View more, refresh. I can't go back. Oh, I can, it's just, it won't.
Interesting. I think, well, you're hitting that not found page anyway, so I think it replaces the page that you're on right now in history with wherever you're navigating to. But because you still have the route from when it worked in there as well before you refreshed, I think. So it's just pushing you to the home page, even though it is going back to the previous course page, if that made any sense.
Yeah,
I-
because
yes.
it mounts and then like, yeah,
Something to play with.
something to play with. You know, if you really wanted to, you could probably save something in your global state to like flag that as, you know, the user already navigated back from this page. So if that's already been done, then don't keep doing it to them. Yeah, something to play with. And then
Does it say it in the docs what replace does?
does it say in the docs?
Yeah, does it say in the docs what replace does?
Let's see. So the navigate has two. So past two, or you could give it a -1, looks like, to go back, like hitting the back button in your browser.
Doesn't say what replaces though. Oh, type declaration. See that drop down at the top? On the left side. It's right under use navigate the title.
Use navigation type
It says, yeah, oh, that doesn't help.
or replace. Okay.
Oh,
It's cool. Yeah, all good things to play with. Yeah, so that concludes this class. It looks like right at time, and we got everything done for kind of some React router stuff. So I'm going to post this. This repo's already up. I'm going to push these class notes up to the class notes repo. And for your homework this week, I think it's the same as last week, except two things. So first, you could add an assignments link next to courses to take you to an assignments page, or a different page, but that requires you doing last week's homework. So the idea there was like, give the user an option to add an assignment to their class. There's different ways to do this. You can add it per class, or you can just have a list of assignments, kind of like you have a list of courses. And maybe the class could be a string field in it, where it just tells you the course. It will definitely change how you implement it. But yeah, if you just have some assignments and then you can link to an assignment page, that would give you like probably this full workflow you'd have to recreate and practice that. If you want something a little less complex, you can just add another input to the profile section and track that and put that in the nav bar too. So, and if if not any of that, then just add a new property into the courses you can update. Those are kind of like, I would say, the three options for homework if you want to get further practice in this.
And speaking of homework, I talked with Mr. George about this as we were waiting for everyone to pile in. The credits that Maryville University is providing for this class, it's an elective. So not any particular class, but I was informed that we do have to have homework assignments in general. And in order for you to get that credit, you have to do them. So just throwing that out there.
Then, okay, then I think for that, I would need to know the exact requirements, and I can give you all more defined homework. Maybe Mike and I can talk about that after class.